Donald Trump just melted down in a live interview, and it all started with the pathetic turnout at his so-called birthday parade. Everything that followed was unhinged. But before we get to that chaos, you need to see this clip, because this is the moment top officials started calling out Trump's dangerous obsession with using military force to protect his ego.
In California, we cherish our National Guard. They're the first there to help out during earthquakes and floods and fires. We have a very special bond of trust with the National Guard. And so to see it misused this way, to potentially erode that trust, we also venerate the Marines, but to call on the Marines for no other reason, I think, than to add fuel to the fire is a terrible abuse of the military.
So, Senator, let me ask you about that. President Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard, the Marines, despite the fact that California Governor Gavin Newsom said he did not need that, did not want that. President Trump said the city would have, quote, burned to the ground without his aid. Do you think local officials had that situation under control?
Yes, I do. And, let's call the president's statement what it is, and that's just a flat-out lie.
What Adam Schiff just laid out isn't an opinion. It's a fact check in real time. California didn't ask for Trump's military cosplay, and yet he barged in anyway, pretending to be some kind of savior, while actually stirring the pot. Local officials had it under control, but Trump couldn't resist the urge to flex his ego in camo. And that line about the city burning to the ground? Complete fiction. Classic Trump drama queen delusion. But hold on, because in the very next part, Schiff doesn't just call him out, he exposes Trump like never before.
The idea that Los Angeles would have burnt to the ground, it's absurd. These demonstrations were taking place in a multi-block area in a city that is 500 square miles. Our police and our sheriff's office and our highway patrol are more than capable of dealing with this. And if they won't, and they weren't, then the mayor and the governor would request the help of our guard. That was not done. It was not necessary. And I think this is just Donald Trump doing what he wanted to do in the first administration, which was essentially use the military for domestic law enforcement to make himself look tough. In the first administration, there were at least a few people in the cabinet of some independents who could say, no, Mr. President, that's a lawless idea, that's a stupid idea. But there's no one in this current administration to tell the president that's a stupid idea. It will make matters worse. And there are nothing but sycophants, the Stephen Millers and the Kristi Noems and all the rest of them. And so we are seeing this terrible escalation, this increasing lawlessness. The district court was right to find it lawless. Now that Marines are engaged in an arrest, at least one arrest and detention, then that will be challenged too, and I think that too will be found to be lawless.
Boom. Adam Schiff just torched Trump's latest fantasy, deploying troops like he's playing dictator dress up. The facts? Protests were limited. Police had it covered. But Trump, he saw an opportunity to strut around like a tough guy and couldn't resist. Classic. Back in the day, there were some voices around him saying, hey, maybe don't break the law today. Now, it's just Stephen Miller, Kristi Noem, and a whole chorus of yes men cheering him on into chaos. But that wasn't even Trump's most desperate move this week. In true Trump fashion, he tried spinning all this failure into a birthday bash victory lap, claiming 250,000 people showed up in DC for his birthday parade. Except there was no parade, just a man clinging to relevance. Then, get this, he blamed the weather. Yes, the clouds ruined his crowd size, according to him. Stick around, because what he says next about climate change, it's so dumb it might actually bend science.
So we're going to Canada. Last night was a tremendous success with a fantastic audience. It was supposed to rain. They gave it a 100% chance of rain, and it didn't rain at all. It was beautiful. And so I asked if they gave it 100% chance, right? 100% it was going to rain like crazy, and it didn't rain at all. How did they predict 100 years out and 50 years out or 200 years out? They didn't do too well, the weather people, last night, but it was beautiful.
Are you and Prime Minister Netanyahu on the same page concerning how to deal with Iran?
Well, we get along very well, and I will tell you that I think I have great respect for each other. Go ahead, what?
Mr. President, can you give us a sense of what de-escalate the situation between Iran and Israel?
Well, I hope there's going to be a deal. I think it's time for a deal, and we'll see what happens. But sometimes they have to fight it out, but we're going to see what happens. I think there's a good chance there'll be a deal. What? So the protesters, if we didn't have the National Guard on call and ready, they would rip Los Angeles apart. They come and they check and they say, is the National Guard going to be there? And if the National Guard's being there, they don't even show up.
Have you asked Israel to pause their airstrikes into Iran?
Well, I don't want to say that.
Mr. President, do you expect to have some trade deals announced at the G7 summit coming up?
Look, we have our trade deals. All we have to do is send a letter. This is what you're going to have to pay. But I think we'll have a few new trade deals, yeah.
Will the U.S. continue to support the defense of Israel? Will the U.S. continue to support Israel in its defense?
We do, yeah. Thank you very much.
Trump just did it again. The man took weather, literal clouds and drizzle, and turned it into a conspiracy against himself and somehow against science. He claimed his parade didn't get the turnout he wanted because it was supposed to rain, but then it didn't rain, but then it did. But because he personally didn't feel the rain, that apparently means scientists can't predict the climate 50, 100, or 200 years out. Genius. Except it did rain. The glass in front of him was soaked. The streets were wet. There's video of people walking through actual puddles while listening to him ramble about Canada, Iran, trade deals, and mud. Like a man trying to distract us from the fact that nobody showed up. This isn't leadership, it's weather denialism powered by pure ego. And as always, instead of confronting the mess, Trump just flails from topic to topic like he's reading random headlines off his phone. One second he's threatening military force, the next he's trying to negotiate with Iran like it's a real estate deal gone bad. And through all of this, not a single Republican around him says, hey, maybe don't embarrass the country today. They've all surrendered. Spineless, silent, totally fine with a man who governs like a malfunctioning GPS. What's his next move? He tried to intimidate Senator Alex Padilla, because of course he does. Let's see how that turned out, because Senator Padilla dropped facts.
But as you're hearing more and more stories of undocumented, long-term residents of the United States who are otherwise law-abiding, working hard, paying taxes, raising families, and frankly, working in jobs that under the first Trump administration, when the COVID pandemic hit, were deemed essential. Right? Workers in restaurants, in agricultural fields, in healthcare, construction, etc. That's who's being targeted now, and that's why there's so much fear and terror in communities, not just in Los Angeles, but throughout the country.
I did note it was interesting to see in the House, the Republican Hispanic Conference put forth a letter asking for a breakdown of how many criminals were among those actually deported.
And that was one of the key questions I had for the secretary. Of course, she had no data, had no answer, promised to follow up. I hope. Yeah. We'll see. And I also want to be clear about this, because when I had the audacity to try to ask a question as a senator of a cabinet secretary. That's what happened. And you saw the response, everybody's seen the video. It wasn't about me, right? If that's how this administration responds to a senator with a question, don't just imagine what they're capable of, but what they are doing when the cameras are not there to people without a title like United States Senator, that cruel, disrespectful treatment of so many people who deserve much better.
This is the reality. Trump's immigration machine isn't targeting criminals. It's going after longtime workers, parents, caregivers, essential workers who held this country together during COVID. These aren't dangerous people. They're the backbone of entire industries. And now they're being hunted. What Padilla just laid out is a fact. Cruelty isn't the byproduct, it's the policy. If this is how the Trump camp treats a US senator asking a basic question, imagine what they're doing to people with no spotlight, no title, no protection. And Padilla, he's not done. He's got a bit more to say.
For a cabinet secretary during a press conference to not be able or be willing to de-escalate a situation when I was trying to ask a question, that's just indicative of the tone.
You wanted her to say, wait a second, I know who he is, calm down, let him go? Is that what you're saying?
The vast majority of people in that room knew who I was. Escorted into that room by an FBI agent and a National Guards member. It's the Los Angeles Press Corps. It said United States Senate on the chest of my polo.
You'd think it'd be tough to find anyone in government who had a more exhausting week than Alex Padilla. The man literally got swarmed by Trump's security goons while trying to ask a question as a US senator. But somehow, Trump still managed to out-embarrass everyone, including himself. Let's recap, shall we? Birthday party, flop, crowd size, sad, weather, betrayed him, Melania, missing, Marco Rubio looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, Senators Joni Ernst and Pete Hegseth practically dozing off mid-party, and while Trump was soaking in rejection, Gavin Newsom casually rolled through and mocked him on national television. It was like watching someone lose a popularity contest at their own funeral. Stephen Miller might be the only person in Trump world having a worse week, and honestly, let's hope that's permanent. And just when you thought this circus couldn't get any messier, we got this little cherry on top. Right after Trump's birthday parade disaster, a Fox News host got on air, clearly having consumed one too many, let's say, liquid patriots, and proceeded to go full Jeanine Pirro meets karaoke night meltdown. And if this is your first time seeing it, you are in for a gift, because this is peak Fox. Let's roll it.
With us now is former Defense Intel Agency officer Rebecca Koffler. Rebecca, what are your thoughts tonight on the incredible symbolism and the messaging that we saw here tonight from the Commander-in-Chief on the Army's 250th birthday?
I am so excited, Emily and Lucas Tomlinson. Everybody, like, this is incredible. Finally, the United States is back. I want to really thank all of our Army, Navy, and Air Force officers who have been sacrificing their lives. Literally, their families have been contributing to the mission. Most of the time for the past quarter of a century, because of the mismanagement of the administrative states, they've been fighting these foreign wars. But with our new in chief, Donald J. Trump, they are prioritizing America first.
Rebecca Koffler just hit levels of hype usually reserved for Super Bowl wins or UFO landings. She was so excited we were half expecting her to salute her coffee mug and declare war on Canada. According to her, Trump's back, America's back, the troops are back. It's a military-themed fever dream, and she's living in it. At one point, she thanks the entire armed forces like she's accepting an Oscar. But don't worry, you don't have to imagine the chaos. Here's the rest that all caps enthusiasm in real time.
And I want to thank these officers for all of these sacrifices and all of the hardships that their families have been doing. Lawrence Jones, you are doing, you're rocking, man. Like, you guys are incredible. Lucas,
thank you.
I want to thank.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Thank you, and thank you for your service, too.
Rebecca Koffler was so overwhelmed with patriotic adrenaline, we thought she was about to re-enlist herself live on air. She thanked every branch of the military, every host, every camera guy, possibly even her Wi-Fi router. And shout out to Lawrence Jones, apparently now a national hero just for showing up in a blazer. It was like watching a 4th of July speech written by ChatGPT on Red Bull. Honestly, this wasn't commentary. It was a fireworks display with words, and somehow through all the chaos, Fox ended it with a calm "thanks for your service," as if we hadn't just witnessed a live emotional parade. If you enjoyed this glorious meltdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss another moment of Trump world going off the rails. And trust us, you're going to want to click on the next video. Something even wilder just dropped, and yes, it's madness.